This episode is brought to you by Vigilus Slims, the only low stick made by House Escher that's designed for the small hands and weaker constitution of the Necromundan male. Now with menthol. Sweetie, you've come a long way.
Hey there, scabby scummers and gangers. Crimson Oracle here with another episode of Dome Runners TV, and today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite game series of all time, and one of the sort of inroads I took into the Games Workshop hobby, and it is Warhammer Quest, which is about to be sort of relaunching Warhammer Quest Cursed City, coming tomorrow, and I wanted to talk for a little bit about where I'm at with that game right now and sort of why I have decided to skip Night Wars, the expansion that they're putting out, and kind of how I'm feeling about the series in general at the moment. So that's kind of gonna, that's not gonna be a long topic. I don't think this will be longer than a 25-minute video, but I am planning on doing an extended series on Warhammer Quest, because as I've said, it's one of my favorite games, and I've played it going way back into the 90s, and I got Cursed City when it came out, and I got all of the expansion cards and everything for that. So gosh, Cursed City. I would love for you to click the like and subscribe buttons on my video if you happen to enjoy my content, because we're on the road to 1,000 subs and we're getting close. And I'm excited to grow the show and to reach more people, and I think share the joy of narrative gaming with as many people as possible. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of more new video content over the next few months. I really want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of Intro to Necromunda stuff. I want to get into the background of Necromunda more, stuff that I've covered a lot on my podcast, but this is a different medium and not everyone is going to go listen to what's on the podcast. So it's time to start really bringing all that sort of stuff over here to the YouTube channel and spreading all that and getting everybody up to speed. So, with that, let's go on to talking about Cursed City. When it comes to explaining what Cursed City is and was, partly I have to explain why I was so excited for it. Cursed City is the fourth modern Warhammer Quest game, starting with 2016's Silver Tower. The 4 games in 6 years is not too shabby, if I'm being honest. So it's been a series that has really been brought back to life from nothing, really. And I'm really positive on Silver Tower and Shadows over Hammerhall, and I actually got my current group of friends playing tabletop games through Silver Tower, because it was something that we could all sit down and play, and it wasn't too rules heavy. And once they had kind of graduated from that, and that's how we got into Necromunda. So Cursed City was kind of the heir to that legacy. Shadows over Hammerhall and all the expansion cards and everything had really fleshed out the Warhammer Quest game a lot. And I had even done some homebrew content, making adversaries, making my own tiles out of cork and such. And I put a lot of time and energy into that. And I was really passionate about Warhammer Quest. And it was a really interesting kind of inroad into Age of Sigmar for me, because building adversaries for it is sort of how I built my first Age of Sigmar army. And then Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress came out, And Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress was a good game. It evolved the core gameplay mechanics a bit. It abandoned some of the ones I really liked in favor of kind of this like arena thing where you had, your pre-laid out maps where, all the action would happen. And that was fun to a point, but I really did like the more kind of randomized system that Silver Tower did, and I really liked the sort of story based campaign that there was in Hammerhall, whereas Blackstone Fortress was kind of designed to be this sort of standalone, you could play it solo kind of game, whereas Hammerhall required a DM. So I got what they were doing with Blackstone Fortress, but it was not my favorite game in the series, and I think part of the problem was that it had abandoned the cool leveling mechanic that Silver Tower used and Hammerhall used, where you got skill cards, and then you had a maximum number, and you could discard them, and that allowed you to kind of get your skills up to the point where you had the skills that matched your keyword and all of that. And it was a really cool way of doing all of that. And Silver Tower, kind of to me is still the pinnacle of these games, and I think is the best game design wise. So then Cursed City got announced, and let me tell you, Cursed City was such a hyped product. I mean, first they sort of dropped some hints, and kind of breadcrumbs, and then finally we got the reveal, and it was gorgeous. I mean, the models for Cursed City are probably the best box game models that GW has ever done. I mean, the sheer amount of detail on them is incredible. They're gorgeous. And the previous Warhammer Quest games had all been pretty spectacular in terms of the design of the models. But this was just so out of the park. And it was, you were getting, a huge variety of units from the vampire counts or whatever they're called now, something of Nagash army, and it was a great setup, and it was something that really got people excited. And then the game sort of kind of disappeared. So the game came out, and then it almost immediately sold out. So many people didn't get copies. I almost didn't get a copy, but I have a retailer who I have a good relationship with who managed to secure me one. And it was, it was really hard watching all of these people who got excited for this game not be able to get it. And then not just that, the game just disappeared. And Games Workshop, who had, their reps had been telling people it was going to be a stocked game. They didn't have any explanation as to what was going on, and there was no comment for months and months and months. And it created this atmosphere around the game where suddenly it just wasn't exciting anymore. I had my copy for months, and I just sort of was looking at it with, kind of sadness, because I knew that there were a lot of other people that wanted to play this game and couldn't. And so, even taking the models out and painting them and posting about it and showing it off to everyone felt almost rude to these people who, got really excited and then had the rug pulled out from under them. So it was a bummer. And it took a bit. And it didn't help that, the Delta wave and then the Omicron wave really, I had to pull back from any kind of socializing just to be safe. And so we kind of rode into the winter, and I finally, got the mustered up to get my models assembled and painted, and I finally was getting back into gaming with my regular group again in person, and we started to play Warhammer Quest. And at first, it was a lot of fun. There were some really fun mechanics. Some of the heroes have some really cool abilities. I like that they brought leveling back into the sort of post Blackstone Fortress system, but there were some rough edges around it. The game, see, and they did so many things about it right, like incorporating the random tiles from the previous games was something that was a great idea. And there was a lot of good about the game, but something about it mechanically, it just doesn't quite gel. And it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what the problem is. Um, it's a mixture of things, I think. The opponents are fairly bland. There's the occasional, the zombies will spawn more zombies on you, but they're they're sort of so lackluster. They just don't have that much going on, and the range of close combat threats is just not that threatening, and there's no ranged enemies, and the upgrades for your gear and the treasure that you find are all kind of underwhelming, and it all just kind of leaves you wondering, like, what went wrong here? Because, like, I do think that Blackstone Fortress was kind of a step down from Silver Tower and Hammerhall, but this game felt even more like it was kind of missing, that sort of extra zhuzh that made the games fun. And so I was really hopeful when they announced that they were going to be doing expansions that it would be something that would really make a big difference. And it took them a while, and finally, a couple weeks ago, they announced that it was finally coming. Nightwar, the first expansion to Cursed City, and I'm not actually that excited about it. Is that hard to understand though? Because, like, the game feels kind of bland. Something about it feels kind of bland. And the expansion doesn't really address that problem by giving you, more varieties of enemies. Instead, it just goes for more heroes. And it does heroes in a way where you had to buy these expensive HQ characters. And that is rough because, like, the game doesn't need four more, doesn't need four more main villain adversaries. The game needs more interesting sort of mechanics and more interesting tabletop, like the regular flunky kind of opponents. And so I'm looking at this expansion, and it's $50. It doesn't come with any models, and it just doesn't really offer me any guarantee of something that is going to actually make the game better. And so for me, it was like, okay, the obvious solution here is to just wait and get an idea of what the contents are when people, get access to them and have a better idea. And then the game actually wound up selling out in a bunch of places as well. So a lot of people aren't even going to get the expansion who did want it. And of course, a lot of people who have the game aren't going to get the expansion because it's expensive, and because it doesn't come with the models, and because a lot of them probably haven't actually played the game yet, because it was kind of a anticlimactic, kind of frustrating release process. And yeah, so now I kind of find myself in this weird place where my favorite game series, I bought every single expansion to Blackstone Fortress, even though I didn't think Blackstone Fortress was as good as the previous iterations. And here we are, back in Age of Sigmar, extremely wonderful setting, reminiscent of Mordheim with, really absolutely beautiful figures. And I'm just not feeling it right now. And in fact, I'm so not feeling it that, like, my instinct would be, instead of trying to expand on, this Cursed City system, I would almost rather backport the bad guys and everything from Cursed City to the previous Warhammer Quest mechanics. Make adversary cards for the adversaries, and make hero cards for the heroes, and sort of go back to the Silver Tower kind of format, or the format of Shadows over Hammerhall, and sort of use the game to play the more, the I think the better system. But there is also a lot of really great community content that has been written for Warhammer Quest Cursed City, and I think that is definitely worth checking out. First, there is the fantastic Briar Queen expansion, which was put out by Beyond Precipice, who is a developer who did a bunch of expansion content for Blackstone Fortress. And it expands on the adversaries a great deal, and is a really wonderful full-featured expansion that I think is well worth your attention if you happen to be a fan of Cursed City. This expansion gives you a bunch of new adversaries and a whole new map to play on, and new upgrades for your weapons, and new pretty much everything that you can imagine expanding in the game. It's in here, and it does a great job, and it brings in the Night Haunt range, which has really some fantastic models in it that you can get relatively inexpensively from Underworld's kits, and from the snap together models. And yeah, so this is one I highly recommend. There is also the fantastic Beast Returns expansion, which the production on this is so exquisite, I just couldn't sing its praises high enough. And it is a whole extended expansion that kind of deals with similar topics to the Nightwar game, but offers you, a lot of really compelling interactions. And yeah, I just strongly recommend checking this one out. It is absolutely high quality. And yeah, so the fan community is taking wonderful care of Cursed City. And it feels like at the moment, this is better than what we're getting from GW. So, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. I am not against the expansion. I'm not one of those people who's, sort of hopping mad about it. But when I really thought about whether it was worth that $50 for me, I just couldn't justify it. It's a decent game, but it really, the problem with it was sort of the replayability, and I just am so I put up a poll about it, and I wanted to get other people's opinions about it. And so here are some, of people's personal comments about Cursed City. And it turned out that of all the people who follow me who saw this, who had it, only a quarter of them wanted to get the expansion, which is not great. I mean, there's a certain lack of enthusiasm. And yeah, so here I am. I love Warhammer Quest. I'm gonna make a whole video series here about Warhammer Quest because it is one of the great games, one of the great games ever to come out, and I think that there's a lot of good to be had exploring it, and I just I'm just bummed out. I really wish that Cursed City had been handled in a better way, and that the game was better. I mean, that's the real fundamental problem. And I don't think that it's unsalvageable, but I have significant doubts whether Nightwar will actually fix any of those problems, if you can even get it. And then if you're willing to plunk down $200 for the models, and it just, the whole thing kind of leaves me a little little frustrated, and I don't want to say salty because I'm not mad. It's more just like I'm disappointed and a little frustrated because it feels like the game is cursed. It feels like the game has an actual like pox over it, and that's why we are stuck with this miserable situation. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe curses aren't real, but it just does feel like Cursed City is it just can't get a win. And I would really love for Cursed City to be the game that I was hoping it would be. And the community content is great. The possibility of maybe rolling things back to the previous Warhammer Quest system is something that I may explore in the future if other people are interested in playing that. I don't want to put the dev time in if it's just for me, because I'm a weirdo, and we'll see. But I am still playing Cursed City. We play it every once in a while, and it's we haven't completed all the way to killing Radikar yet. And the reason for that mostly is that the game got a little bit repetitive and we just kind of got a little bit bored. So Cursed City. So much wasted opportunity. Thanks once again to my patrons. You guys are wonderful and help keep the show on the air. And anyone else can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. $2 a month is not too much, and you get to know that you help support the work of me and all of this stuff that I create. And of course, you should check out the Dome Runners podcast, because I do a twice monthly podcast where I talk about Necromunda and sort of do deep dives on a lot of Necromunda topics. So with that, of course, everybody out there, stay safe and don't forget to change your paint water.